Hey guys, welcome to Good Vibes Only. We've got Antonia here today. We're just talking to her, having a little corridor, getting to know her a bit more. And so our vision is to normalize speaking up, reaching out and asking for help with the values there: authenticity, compassion and connectedness. Oh, I pointed on the wrong side. How do you do this? There we go. But welcome Antonia.
Thank you.
Do you want to start by just telling us a bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, all that kind of stuff?
Sure thing. Tēnā kōrua, tēnā koutou, if there's going to be more than two people watching. Ko taranaki te maunga, ko waitara te awa, ko kurahau me Aotea ngā waka, ko te ati awa te iwi, ko manukarihi te hapu, ko owai tōku marae, ko Anna tōku mama, ko Willie tōku papa, ko Lois tōku tungane, ko Mary raua ko Mia o Kutaina, no taranaki me Hamua hoki a hau, ko Alesa, te tūranga waiwai. Ko Antonia Swann tōku ingoa. Tēnā kōrua, tēnā koutou katoa. My name's Antonia. I am 25 years young. And I am of Samoan, Māori and New Zealand European descent. I live at home still in Tamaki Makaurau out west, the west side.
The west side.
I can say that because we're two Westies. With my mum Anna, dad Willie, and my younger brother Lewis, and younger sister Mia. So I'm the oldest of the clan. I went to St. Dominic's Catholic College out west. Very proud old Dom's girl. Before that, went to Holy Cross Intermediate in Henderson, which is where I met Christian. And I'm very good friends with Christian's older sister, Hope. And I went on to study comms at AUT, majored in television and screen production, and worked at the Logos Project, which is a Maris youth development organisation that works in secondary schools, which is where I met Ethan. And now I work at Whakaata Māori or Māori Television as a production manager. And my hobbies include netball, cooking, and long walks on
the beach.
Garden. No, on the beach too, I guess. That's a small snapshot about me.
To the introduction and your pepeha. How did you get into production management? That sounds quite interesting, especially for Māori television. Yeah,
it's kind of a right place, right time story, really. When after graduating at uni and doing my comms degree, I kind of was like at the end of it, I don't know what I'm doing next year. And I'm someone who's kind of always been about what's happening next year and knowing what's happening and having a plan. And so instead of going out into the real world, I decided to do an extra year of study and do my postgrad diploma in comms. And then after that, I got to the end of that year and I was like, oh, damn, I still don't know what I want to do or where I'm going to go. And I don't have a plan. And so I'd applied for all these jobs and stuff and had a lot of dead ends, and then was offered a role at the Logos Project, which is, like I said, was a Maris youth development organisation, and was on there doing their comm stuff and social media stuff, which was really cool. And I did that for a year, and again was kind of looking out into the field, but not really about what I could do with my TV degree. My comms degree. And I think when you hit a lot of dead ends, it defeats you, and you kind of like, I don't know if I want to keep going with this. You can become quite complacent, and I think I did for a little while. And then I applied for this job on Seek or Indeed or whatever, for Māori television, and it was for a role called Content Creation Media Officer, which sounds like super official and like heaps of authority. But there was like heaps of no authority. I delegated to no one. I reported to everyone. And I didn't really know. I just kind of applied for it on a limb and then had an interview and got the job. And again, I didn't really know what the job was about. But anyway, it was a foot in the door, and it was at Māori Television, which was amazing and quite, yeah, I think about it and I'm like, wow, I, got into Māori TV because I've always looked at that as such a profound space, especially for Indigenous broadcasting. I think we're very lucky in New Zealand to be able to have a space like that for our Indigenous. And I'm in part Indigenous, and so it's even more of a connection. And then so after a year of working in that role and learning how to do that, and it was more admin based, and I was I'd come from this kind of creative degree, and was like, okay, I'm kind of itching to do something a little bit more in television, because the role was more admin and delivery of programs, and not really the dirty work that I had studied at uni. And then at the end of my first year, I was asked to help organise our little department Christmas party, and people had kind of noticed that I was an organised person and liked to have fun and be creative and get stuff done. And there was an opening for a production manager role, and I was approached about it and asked if it was something that I would like to take on and explore. And I would kind of just jumped at it because I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so cool and exciting, and definitely in the direction that I want to head, even though I didn't really know what a production manager did at the time. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, I'll give it a crack. Turns out they do a lot. They're kind of part of the engine room behind productions, which I know now, working in the role. But yeah, that's the long story lead up to that. But yeah, I think I just wanted to mention kind of where that all came from. It didn't just come to me, and I didn't go seeking for it. It just
happened.
Yeah, tapped me on the shoulder and happened. And I'm still kind of learning and growing in the role, but yeah, that's where I am, and that's how I kind of got there.
That's epic. That just shows that you take your chances and things work out how they're meant to work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm interested to, I guess, because obviously there's like a lot of passion behind a lot of what you do, and I'm interested kind of to hear what like motivates that or where that comes from, because obviously working for Logos as like a youth development space, and then moving into Māori television, there's like passion that's behind that. So tell us a little bit more about, I guess, what your why is and what motivates you to kind of be an advocate, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, what a question. Yeah, I think, my role and my work aside, I'm a big believer in that I didn't do anything by myself. There's nothing that I've done by myself. It's always been a collective effort, and whether that's been direct or indirect, it's always been collective in my mind, because I am 100% a product of the people who raised me and supported me, a product of the things that I learned in school and uni, the values that I was raised with, and the experiences that I've had, good and bad, good, bad and ugly. And so, these are all the things that shape you to be the person that you are. And we continue to be shaped because we meet new people, we have new experiences, and we have all of these moments and milestones along the way. I think I have a huge passion for people, and making sure that everyone feels, or everyone that I meet and develop relationships and friendships with, have a sense of belonging in their spaces, especially a sense of belonging in a space that I would share with them. And I think that stems from, my childhood. I was always, I would consider myself to be quite empathetic and inclusive of people. And I think that's because I've had experiences with bullying, as a victim of bullying, as a person who has been labelled as different, as someone who has made to feel like they don't belong or shouldn't be somewhere. And I'm sure this will come up as we continue to speak together, but I was and I forgot to mention this in my intro, but for the first 11 years of my life, I lived in the UK. I lived in England, and my dad was playing rugby league over there, and then my mum and I joined him when I was a baby, 7 weeks old, moved over there and grew up there for 11 years, of my primary schooling there and everything. And I when I was younger, didn't see color. Like I was, over there, I was this little brown girl in a predominantly white school. And to me, everyone was just, different shades of the same. And so, you kind of have this sense of feeling that you belong everywhere when you're young and when you're little, because no one, kids are so innocent that, you're just friends with anyone. You'd pull each other's hair and you'd, eat your boogers and everything. Kids don't care. And I think there was a moment when I was younger, story time, that I got in the car one day, and my mum had picked me up from school. I think I was 4 years old, and she said, "Oh, how was your day?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's good. Such a body's having a birthday party." And she said, "Oh, that's cool." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not invited." And she's like, "Oh, that's all right. You don't get invited to everyone's birthday." And I was like, "Yeah, it's because she said I'm not peach colored." And so, I said it so blasé, like I was like, I'm not peach colored, whatever. But mum, she was like, stop the car, went to the school, had this big thing. And and I think from before that, I didn't see color. But then after that, I began to see it, and I could see difference, and I could see that, I was slightly different. I was born in New Zealand. I had, my parents had these Kiwi accents. I didn't quite have a Kiwi accent. I was from New Zealand. I didn't know what that meant. I was Samoan, I was Maori, but I didn't know what that meant. And kids over there, with some like kids you'd meet on the playground, would think that I was from Pakistan, because they associated the color brown with a brown country that they knew of, because there were a lot of immigrants from different parts of the world. And then you begin to kind of question kind of like who you are and what your identity is, and that's a lot to take in at a young age,
Yeah.
And so I think that's definitely played a part in how I see people and how I connect with people and their stories and where they come from. And I think that's what sparked my passion in a way, and that desire to be connected to people, to make people feel like they belong, to make people feel like they're included, and to ensure that people come authentically to each other, which is why when I like looking at you both and seeing in the background authenticity, compassion and connectedness, those are very close to my heart, those values, because it's exactly what I was brought up with and what I have had to learn myself. It's and you can be brought up with these things, but there's a journey of self-discovery and awareness with each of those things that you kind of have to learn yourself through experiences, and each of those things I've had to learn through experiences, with whether they be good, bad or ugly. So yeah, I think that answered part of your question.
Well, I thought it answered the whole question, to be fair. And I can get a sense that it is your past experiences that shape who you are today. And what I'm also sensing is more a groundedness from yourself in terms of your cultural identity, especially with your introduction of the pepeha. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but someone when you're growing up in the UK, coming from New Zealand, not being able to fit in or being a bit different, to now where I am sensing a lot of like that yourself and your culture. Is it accurate, or am I getting it wrong?
No, well, I think that's accurate. But I'd also say that I'm still learning. Like I'm still trying to learn kind of who I am in my culture. And there's so much more that I am hungry to learn about from all sides of who I am culturally. I know that, you know, that my pepeha would not have been able to do that when I was growing up. And I know that, you know, in most New Zealand schools, you learn the basics like that, and you kind of are taught to learn where you come from and feel the kind of connectedness. Over there, the you know, in terms of history, you're kind of learning about the royal family and, you know, ancient Romans, ancient Greeks, but you, as interesting and fascinating as those things are, there's a disconnect, because you know that that's not your whakapapa. Then part of it is my whakapapa, but you come back here and then you're like, oh my gosh, there's this whole other world that I am a part of that, you know, I haven't been able to explore, but now I have an opportunity to do that. But yeah, you're right, Ethan, but it's definitely still a journey that I'm still on.
Could you tell us a little bit more, I guess, about when you came back to New Zealand? So like when you first were, was it like, did you finally find yourself? Were you like, holy shit? Or was it like not enjoyable? Was it a whole nother journey of like, finding yourself, I guess?
No, the answer is no, I did not find myself. If anything, I came back and had like major culture shock. Because we would come back to New Zealand for summer holidays every couple of years. And so my taste of New Zealand was family in the summertime and summer holiday things. And I loved coming back here because we got to see heaps of our family, and, you know, go to the beach and have a Kiwi summer, because England summers are not the same as Kiwi summers. England summers are like New Zealand autumns, or New Zealand springs maybe sometimes when they have a minor heat wave. But I remember coming back here and thinking, there was two parts to it. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many different kinds of people here. This is a melting pot of people. Oh my gosh, I'm like the same color as some people. And I, you know, really feel a connectedness because of your family, but you're still trying to suss out the whole situation. And I remember I started, we came in October 2007, and I started at a primary school down the road from my grandparents' house. And it was so strange. The first day I got there, I cried. I was year 6, so I'd already finished primary school in England, but we'd come back and the end of the school term was still going. I got to the school, all the kids were in mufti. That was number one, strange. There were like 24 rooms. In my old school in England, there was one room per year level. They were just called year 1, year 2, all the way to year 6. And then you come here and there's room 24, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many kids here. And then they called the teachers by their first names, and I was like, what's going on? And I know that all of that's not the norm across all New Zealand schools, but that is, you know, something that, you know, there are schools, a lot of schools like that. You know, kids running around in bare feet and all this, and I was just kind of like, I've no idea what's going on. Plus, I had this little English accent going on that was kind of like a hybrid of what I had created, what my friends had, and what my parents had at home. So it was like this Kiwi English, mainly English accent. And so I just didn't fit. Like, kids in my class were kind of like, you look like us, but you don't sound like us, and you look confused. And I remember being in class and the teacher talked about doing a title page for some topic, and I had no idea what a title page was. And then kids were asking me if I wanted like a Jaffa. I was like, I don't even know what a Jaffa is. What are you talking about? Like, it's all these little things that you just don't even think of, but it was just so strange to me. And then when you're saying, what's that? Or what's that? Or what's this? You automatically kind of isolate yourself because you're different, because you don't understand, and everyone else is the same, but you're the odd one out. And so I think that was a massive shock to me, and I really did not enjoy going to that school. And then 3 weeks, I think I was there for about 3 weeks, and then left, and my mum had just got a job in the new year at Holy Cross in Henderson. And so I went to Holy Cross for like the last few weeks of term. And I remember I started, the school was, you know, had a uniform. They called teachers Mr. and Mrs. da-da-da. So it was a little bit more of what I was used to. Still like 20 rooms. And I walked into this classroom and there was all these different, so much more diversity than the previous school. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is quite amazing. I remember I met my first Tongan friend, and my first Filipino. I had never met a Filipino before in my life. Now I have so many Filipino friends. And I thought, I was just like, oh my gosh, this Filipino guy, I didn't know if he was Spanish or American. You know, soon to find out that, you know, Spanish American influences in the Philippines, yada yada. But I was like mesmerized by these people because I hadn't been surrounded by that kind of cultural diversity before. But I didn't cry on my first day, and I remember feeling automatically kind of safe in this school. But the funny thing is that this year 5 and 6 school camp was going in the first week that I started, and the following week it was split into 2. And my mum was like, well, so the school camp's coming up, and look, you won't go on this one this week because it's going tomorrow, but I've got you sorted for the school camp next week, which is like a week long. And I'm like pooping my pants because I'm like, you sent me to this new school and now I have to go away with these people for a week. And I like, you know, just can you imagine this like 11-year-old who's at this new school in a new country, and then going away for a week and has barely settled into a bedroom. Like, so I remember going away on school camp. I don't know if, because Christian, you're younger than me, you might, I don't know if you're on my school camp or the one before me, but we went to Cow Island, and yeah, again learned what it was like to be a Kiwi kid. It was the orienteering, the what else did you do? Yachting and Burma trails and spotlight.
Raft building? Did we do raft
building?
Yeah.
Jumping off the wharf at 7 a.m. Like all of these things that I'd maybe done a couple things at my old school, but you know, this is what Kiwi kids, you know, love to do. And I was like, I have no idea what is going on. And it's all the little jokes and the conversations that people are having, and people know what they're talking about, and you kind of like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm just going to sit here and listen and try and learn what you're saying so that I can contribute to the conversation. But I do remember that one of the teachers, you know how you do like a little concert at the end of the week, I was asked to be the MC for that concert, and I don't even remember why I did it or what, you know, gave me the courage to even do that on my second week of school on this strange school camp, but I did it, and that was pretty cool now that I look back on it. But she was scared, like scared shootless about it. But yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, in short, Christian, is that no, I did not find myself and I got back here. If anything, I was more confused and had a cultural crisis.
But what I really like about that is that you, I guess, the isolation and everything like that, all these negative feelings created something really positive in you, like someone who was really empathetic, someone who cared for other people, someone who wanted to be inclusive of others. And like, you know, you can see those things going one of two ways in a lot of people, and sometimes it goes the other way. So I think it's really cool that it created a lot of positivity in you and made you, shaped you, like your path shaped you. So that's cool, I think. You go through some weirdness to get to where you are.
I would also imagine as an 11-year-old, especially coming from the UK for 11 years, because that's your norm, right? And then coming and being placed in New Zealand, totally different environment, huge culture shocks, I think. and you even mentioned yourself, cultural crisis.
Yeah.
And I would imagine people watching this as well. For me, I'll speak for myself. I also had a lack of identity when it comes to cultures, because I am Tongan and Niuean. And even it's still a journey for me. I'm a lot more grounded in my culture now, but previously not as much. I guess what kind of how would you support someone, or how would you help someone who is struggling with cultural identity? Or what kind of advice would you give to someone who is struggling with cultural identity?
I would say, now I guess it would be like speaking to my younger self in a way, is that it's, you're not going to get what you want overnight. You're not going to find out who you are overnight. And it's a journey, and it's one that you have to do with other people as well as with yourself. I think when you have this feeling of disconnect from any part of you, whether it's your culture or your family or your religion or whatever, you can feel whakama, you can feel embarrassed about that. And I certainly can put my head up and say that there was this feeling of embarrassment that I didn't know who I was culturally, or where I came from, because when I was growing up overseas, there was nowhere for me to explore that other than home. And we didn't have cultural festivals over there where you had the Swann group and the kapahaka performing like you do at schools here. And so when I would talk about where I came from over there, because I didn't even know much about it, I didn't really talk about it when I was over there and say, I'm Samoan, because I didn't know what that meant. Because, if someone was to ask me a question about Samoa or about New Zealand and I didn't know the answer, are you really from those places? So those conversations may never have happened, but in my head they were happening.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would say that it's definitely about surrounding yourself with the people who can support you on that journey, especially if you feel whakama or afraid. And I think I definitely felt afraid because you don't want to mispronounce words, or you don't want to have those conversations where people ask you what village you're from, or what iwi you're from, or who's your grandparents, and or start speaking to you in different languages, because you're like, I don't know how to respond, I don't know how to, and I think it's okay, because you have a choice there. It's whether you want to just keep going and just not explore it and not know anything about it, or you can make the decision to say, look, I don't know much about who I am, but I want to. Where can I start? Who can I talk to? And again, it's those people. And I was lucky that I had school friends and teachers that would say, hey, you should join the kapahaka, or hey, this is how you say this in Samoan, this is how you say this in Te Reo, and I think sometimes you can feel defeated if someone laughs at you, or someone tells you that you're different, and I've definitely been there as well multiple times, and that can take you can think you've gone 2 steps forward, and that can take you 5 steps back. But it's about thinking about who can help you take 5 steps forward, or 1 step forward, or 2 steps forward, and be with you when someone knocks you a few steps back as well. Because what is that person gaining by knocking you back a few steps? Maybe a laugh or two, but they're not gaining kindness votes from me. So yeah, I would say it's not overnight, and it's not alone. It's with people.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think that point about connection to your past and your heritage is so important for so many people. And wherever you are and wherever you're from, because how do you learn if you're not connected to your past? It's such a powerful thing for people to be able to do. And how was that journey for you? Did it feel really empowering? And was it amazing for you, connecting to that past again, I guess, to your culture?
Yeah, yeah, it was. And I think, you take the small steps, like you in your te reo class in year 7 and 8, you stand up and you do your pepeha, like that's the step. Learning how to pronounce kia ora, like that's a step. When I joined the Swann group in the Swann, we had a Swann homework center, like joining that, and we'd sing the national anthem at the beginning. And I remember thinking, all these kids know the national anthem and I have no idea what it is. But I was so determined that I was going to learn it so that I could do it. And I do remember there was a time that I ran away, like out of the room because I was too embarrassed to do it. But that just made it more embarrassing when I came back into the room because I was that girl that ran away. So, you double up on the embarrassment if you run away from it in front of people. But I remember doing a siva for the first time and feeling very connected to a part of me. But like I've said before, I'm still on that journey, and I by no means am there yet. But I'm a lot further along than I was 10 years ago. And I think, even my past of living in the UK, like I didn't really talk about that when I moved here because, again, that fear of being judged from, living overseas in England and people thinking that I was just down the road from the Queen. We were not in, just to be clear, everyone, we were not in the fancy side of London. We were up in the northwest in not the hood, but not, it wasn't, we weren't posh. So just so people know that, because sometimes people are like, oh, she lived in England. Which I mean, definitely an amazing experience, and there was a lot of amazing experiences and things that we did over there. But people hear one word and they have this whole kind of story to it, which can kind of silence you in a way. So I didn't really bring that up when I moved here too.
Because England's like all tea and top hats, eh?
Yeah, it's all tea and top hats. Yeah, and we had a family friend that thought that New Zealanders lived in mud huts when we were over there. So, and I'm like,
what?
So, people have, everywhere you go, there'll be people who have all these preconceived notions about everything. And I think that's where we have a duty to tell people, as a part of our story, just to give them to add something to their story, to add something to their cup of tea, because so we don't live in mud huts. And I do not recall ever wearing a top hat drinking tea in England. So down with the judgment.
I would imagine though that the food would be quite different though in the UK and New Zealand. Yeah,
it was your typical whatever you'd think. I mean, a lot of it's similar, like what kind of pasta and all those kind of things. But the stereotypical fish and chips and English breakfast, like we didn't have that all the time, but they're definitely iconic. Like coming here, I would notice things that didn't really taste right, like Heinz and Waddies. Like I'm a Heinz fan because that's what I grew up with, but Waddies over here, I tasted that and I was like, what is that? That's so different. Even stuff like sausage sizzles, like that was strange to me. You bring your $1 and for your sausage sizzle. Like over there, morning tea was like toast and milk and stuff like that. And you'd pay. It's probably all different now, but like even like lunches, I would always have a packed lunch at school, but there was always a kind of dinner was lunch, hot dinner option that kids would get every day, kind of like what you see in America, like canteens, like cafeterias, like that kind of thing. So that was all in the school hall and stuff like that. It's so strange. And then you come here and everyone's got a packed lunch, and there's a tuck shop. I thought tuck shops were amazing.
Moosey's,
they are. Moosey's, pies.
Oh, that's another thing. I'm not a big pie fan.
Well, of course not. No. I mean, you grew up in the UK. They're not fans of pies.
I like bacon and egg pie, but I'm not a fan of pies. I'm not a big seafood person. Like
sausage rolls.
Not from a bakery, nah.
Okay. What about with Heinz sauce all over it?
Nah, I'll have the ones that are frozen from the supermarket.
Yeah.
those ones, but I'm not a pie fan. But I'm not a pie fan because, side story, when I was here on holiday in New Zealand, my papa gave me, we were about to drive to Taranaki, which is like 5 hours from Auckland. And he said, oh, here, take a snack with you. And he got a frozen pie out of the freezer and put it in the microwave. And I was like, oh, yay. And then was eating it in the car, and got halfway through and it was still frozen in the middle. And we were like just down we'd just been on the road for like 15 minutes. And so we had a good, still a good 5 hours. So that was enough for me to be like, nah, not doing the pie thing anymore. Frozen bakery, no.
Wow.
Nah, fair enough.
And it still sits with you to this
Oh
day.
yeah, no.
Traumatic experiences, eh?
That is a very traumatic experience.
I think anyone would think that's disgusting, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, it's making my
Don't give up on the pie, Antonia.
Don't give up on the pie. Yeah. But food's different. But I love food anyway. So
I'm a lover of food.
Yeah, food lovers. Yeah.
Food is nice.
Food is nice.
Food good.
Food is good. It is.
I'm really interested to hear what you think your biggest success is so far, like personally or within work or whatever you want to say, like what comes to mind.
Yeah. I think, I think about it in two parts. There's material successes that I've had in school and in work and stuff like that. And in all of those, those are, off the back of hard work and support from others. And again, a collective effort, not mine alone. But in terms of personal success, I would say, I guess, learning from what I went through bullying and coming out on the side of that, proud to have come out on the side of that, but to have come out of it a person of forgiveness and a person of compassion, because I think it's easy to, it might not be easy, but you could become someone who is resentful or could too become a bully in ways. And I think I'm proud of myself in that I learned how to be compassionate and inclusive and kind, because I would never want anyone to feel that they were not worthy or not included or loved, or that they were of anything less. So I think I would consider that as a deep success. But yeah, I think it's pretty big, because I have had a few encounters of that. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Love those values.
Yes, absolutely.
Just going to get a box of tissues.
Don't make me cry.
I'll be back.
Tell us about your material successes as well.
Oh,
Head girl.
okay.
No.
What was that?
Head
Did you
girl.
say head girl? Oh yes, the bossy one. Yes, I was. Yeah, yes, as head girl in my year level. That was as a material success that I was very honored to be able to do. And it was at a school that I loved and with a community that I was that I belonged to and loved as well, and supported again by teachers and peers, which made the role easy in ways. My degree and all of my studies that I've done, right from NCA level 1 right through to my postgrad dip in comms. But like I've continued to say, those were not my material successes. They were, very well
Collective.
people. Yeah, 100%. Because my mum would proofread things people would print stuff off for me. People would, you share notes for assignments. So yeah, not my degree alone.
Yeah, no, I love how you acknowledge other people on your journey, not only for your material stuff, but also for your other successes as well. Especially when it comes to cultural identity, because yeah, it does take a lot of people to be able to support you and to be able to I guess offer you on your journey as well. Hey?
Hard out, absolutely.
I had a question, but I've forgotten it.
Random side note, did you guys hear that music in the background?
No.
Nah,
You're having a party?
It was like so I wasn't being rude. I was just gonna turn it off.
I'm glad you said that, because I was like, what a rude dude now.
Yeah, hard. I could see it in your eyes when I got back. You're like, oh. No,
he's back at his other thing.
Well, if you don't remember, Ethan, I have a question.
Yeah, go hard. I'll think of it.
Because since you mentioned a lot around the bullying and all that kind of stuff that you went through, do you want to dive a little bit deeper into some of those experiences, if you feel comfortable, and how they were for you and how you got through them, kind of thing?
Yeah. I remember in primary school over in the UK, I was kind of in a friendship situation, which was a bullying situation, but I didn't know it was until I looked back on it and thought, oh, that wasn't nice or normal. I just remember being, I was really good friends with this person. And context, we were growing up 9-10 years old. And I would always go around to her house, most a few days after school, and we'd hang out and stuff. And I remember it was all good when it was just the two of us. But I remember we had another friend that would come round, and then all of a sudden, you play games like Peaches, or you play games like, whatever made up scenarios, young kids come up with, the creatives. And I was always the friend that was the friend that they weren't talking to, but it was all role play, but it was okay, we're gonna go do this, and then you're the one that we're kind of not, we're trying to run away from, painting this blatant bullying scenario, whereas I'm yeah, I know my role.
Perfect. I got this.
I can nail this. And I know I'm laughing because I look back and I think, oh my gosh, you're so cute, Antonia, you're so naive and innocent. But I really look back and I feel sorry for her being me. And it was stuff like, we would share a drink, and there were 3 glasses, and they would fill their cups up to the brink, and I would get this much in the thing, and they're like, oh, sorry, there's none left, are you okay with that? Those kind of things. Or something would move, or something would fall off a table, and it was oh, why did you do that? Or, oh, it wasn't me, it must have been Antonia, da da da. These little catty little things where you're oh, what, I don't know what I did wrong, but I think what I, or maybe I'll say that after, but yeah, I remember that in primary school, but always kind of going back to it, I never was oh, this is wrong, this is injustice, this is unfair. It was always oh, okay, this is just kind of how this friendship works, kind of thing, and I'm okay, and I'm not a confrontational person, so I wouldn't be the one to be hey, leave me alone, be nice to me. It was always okay, da 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 da. If the mum would come into the room is everything okay? I'd be yeah, everything's fine, da da da. And sometimes I just want to say to her, why didn't you just slap them? But I know that I still wouldn't do that today, to an extent. I would get a bit self-righteous and say something now, never violently though. And I had that experience when I was in primary school, and then when I was an intermediate here in New Zealand, I had another experience that was similar, where I was made to feel like I didn't belong, made to feel different, made to feel that kind of not worthy of being friends with all these people, and being excluded. And I remember crying going to school and not wanting to go to school because there was this girl that was just not nice to me. And I think at the beginning, it was also nobody stood up to her for me, and because I couldn't do it myself. And, you know, there were people who knew about it but didn't say anything because I think they too were scared of her. And I remember when we did speeches at school, I did my year 7 speech on bullying, and I remember I did it in front of the school, and it was very emotional and very very real, and yet I think that was my way of saying it out loud, because I couldn't say it to the bully space, and I couldn't say it in a classroom context. So yeah, those, I can't remember all details of those bullying times, but I do remember that feeling of being isolated. And I think it all came back to that being made to feel that you're different, and because you're made to feel that you're different and everyone else is the same, you're clearly the person that needs to fix it. You're the person who needs to go from wrong to right, because you're the odd one out. And so I've always had this feeling, and only up until a few years ago, which is a long journey, where I felt that I always have to change myself to fit certain situations and certain groups of people. And I think that's just the power of bullying, and the toxicity, is that the word, of how it can make people feel, which is why I think my desire to make sure people feel included and that they belong has just grown over time, because I didn't like the way that I felt, and I don't want anyone else, I wouldn't wish anyone else to feel that way either.
Well, yeah, it shows how much you care about other people, because it's definitely not a nice feeling to be bullied by anyone. When did you kind of realize that their behavior wasn't right or was kind of wrong?
Well, I think when I was going to school crying every day, this is the intermediate situation, I was like, well, this isn't normal behavior. And my mum, who worked at the school, was, you know, concerned as well. And I think when people when people would see kind of things and notice that things were not okay. I remember I had a friend, an intermediate, who was like, you know, she's just straight up to your face, like, that's like, why are you talking to her like that for? Like, da da da. Her name is Brooke. She's a very good friend of Hope Curtis and I, and would just tell people straight that, you know, you're a bit of a dick, and stop treating people like that. And I think when someone else sees it, you know that there's something that you're thinking that's right, you know, because you're like, it affirms what you think. And Hope was another person who is a straight shooter, and it says it how it is. And, you know, when you find people, and the people who are the bystanders, who can see what's wrong and say something about it, those are the people to keep on your side, because they affirm what you're feeling, which is wrong. And I think, yeah, my mum, yeah, she's definitely one of those people that would call someone out on their ways if it's not good. And yeah, she was another person that affirmed that I was, yeah, it's not okay. And I think after that situation, I look back on my primary school situation and was like, oh yeah, that was bullying. Right, yeah, you felt bad, not because you were playing your role really well, but because you genuinely felt like crap, because it wasn't kind and it wasn't nice. So
yeah, and that's deep, man, because obviously I was around that whole time. I didn't see it, and like all I saw of you was like, obviously I was young, but all I saw of you was like this really kind, compassionate person that was always like happy as, and like, you know, all that stuff. That's what I saw. So I think that's an important reminder as well for people, that just because people are happy and kind and being nice to everyone doesn't mean they're not going through a hard time, you know?
Yeah,
And I think,
absolutely.
yeah, that's like important to realize as well. But what I guess advice would you give someone, or a child or someone going through those same experiences, to almost speed up that process? I mean, you obviously mentioned finding the right people that can almost be your voice for you, but other than that, is there any other advice that you give?
You know, I think it would be easy to say stand up to them, but I know that that's not easy. That's way easier said than done. Because if you're like me, you're not a confrontational person, and I think you also don't want to make someone else feel like crap, who's making you feel like crap, because you're like, oh, I don't want to bully you for being the bully, because then I'm the bully, you know. And so again, it's one of those things that may take time, or it can happen in an instant, and it is people that you surround yourself with, but it's also listening to yourself, and if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And so if you feel like you are isolated or alone or sad, then the remedy to that is not to be happy or be unsad, or be, you know, that's not a word, but be happy, or, you know, be okay with things, because that's not being authentic to how you're feeling. Instead, it's about, okay, you're sad, why are you sad? And that's not okay that you feel that you feel so sad that you don't want to go to school, or so sad that you don't want to be in the same room as someone. And so I'd say listen to yourself when you're having those feelings, but talk about it to someone who you trust. And again, that's easier said than done sometimes, because talking about it is one of the biggest steps that you can take. But I think acknowledging it in yourself first is a huge affirmation, because it can reassure you that, yeah, this isn't okay. But it is a journey, and everyone's different.
100%.
Yeah.
I think often times when you're going through things like that, or you're seeing injustice or bullying or things happening, even in regards to yourself, you almost don't believe yourself that it is actually a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's a hard thing to kind of just trust yourself, I guess, that I feel bad, it made me feel bad, so I need to voice that, or do whatever I can to remedy that situation, I guess.
Yeah, because and I think, you know, something could have just been a miscomment or a misunderstanding, but if you don't have that initial realization, then it could just simmer away and become something so much bigger. And so you could save yourself a lot of you know, grief or sadness or anger or resentment if you acknowledge it earlier. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing, is that first step of acknowledging it.
No, I like what you said about, if it doesn't feel right, then it's probably not right. And then, you know, having that someone to talk to about it, so that you can
Did he freeze?
I froze, didn't I? Yes, my internet cut out.
So he was saying something so profound.
I know, I was like, oh, getting in the zone now, I've forgotten.
You can go again and we can cut that.
Yeah,
I already need to cut that reverb part where I was talking about that.
I've forgotten what I was saying though. So
about if it's not right, if it doesn't.
Oh yeah, if it doesn't, you know, feel right, then it's probably not right. And then to have someone reaffirm that for you, like when you talk about it, it just kind of affirms your feelings that it isn't actually right. And you know, I think if you're kind of thinking about it yourself, that you kind of second guess yourself, like, oh, maybe no, that's not right. And then you're like, oh no, maybe it is right. This is just how it's meant to be. But if you verbalize it with somebody, and then someone else actually says, actually, hey, that's not right. Like, that's not okay. Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a lot easier said than done, right? And it's about finding the right support people for you, like that would actually, you know, work for you and support you no matter what.
Too true, brother.
I'm curious, what's next for you? I want to know what's next for you.
Oh.
Damn, we've acknowledged the past.
Yes, that's right.
The future.
Marriage.
What is next?
No,
Say it louder. No, just kidding. That would be, yes. That's, well, truthfully speaking, that's definitely on the cards.
Cute.
Cute. I know.
That's so
cute.
cute.
You know him.
You
so
heard it here first. No,
exclusive. Teen exclusive. Yeah, well, I mean, like, you know, when I was 20 years old, you talk about these 5-year plans that you have, and it's like, oh yeah, for me it was like finish my degree, you know, get into the job industry, yeah, and then you get to 5 years later and you're at 25 and you're like, okay, 5 years, and it's all those things that you think in high school, oh, you know, 20 years later, da da da, and then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah. So what's next? I think, well, what I've learned is that you don't always get to have a pen to paper plan, which is what I've always liked to have, you know, and so I'm still learning that not everything has to be pen to paper planned, but ideally, yeah, it would be, you know, marriage one day, kids one day, traveling bit more around the world, yeah, and just, I guess the future doesn't really have a concrete plan. It's got things that I'd like to happen, some soon, some later, but I would like to say, yeah, it's scripted but unscripted, and I'm learning to be okay with that. Yeah,
go with the flow, dude.
Yeah, go with the flow, which is like, again, for me, easier said than done, because I'm like, I need a routine, I need to know what's happening next. But I think when you're with people who aren't necessarily like that, whether that's a friend or a family or girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, if they're not like that, then you need a compromise. And so I may need to compromise on some things, and that's okay.
Are you compromising at the moment?
It's not all about me. Pardon?
Are you compromising at the moment, or what?
Do we need to have a conversation? No.
Do we need Noah on the podcast?
Yeah. You're gonna turn it into a couples podcast session.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing that I'm majorly compromising at the moment. But I think when you feel comfortable with people, like any of the relationships that you have, family, friends or otherwise, compromises can feel a little bit easier, because there's trust involved, and there's comfort, and there's a little bit of hope and faith. So that's what I'm going with: hope, faith, trust, compromise.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one. Yes.
Are there any other, I guess, like hard times that you've been through that you want to share a little bit more about, or touch on, or anything like that? And how
yeah. Well, when I think about hard times that I've had, it's hard to think about them as hard times when you've seen someone else's hard times, because I consider myself to have had quite a privileged upbringing, and quite a I've been, you know, brought up in a really good family and have had great experiences, and the great definitely outweighs the not so great. I know we've talked about the not so great mainly, but the great by far and wide outweighs the not so. And so I'm very mindful of my privilege and what I have had and what I do have, especially when you meet people who don't. And so my hard times, it's easy for you to think your hard times aren't hard times. But my mum has always said that, you know, everyone has a story, everyone has a struggle, and some struggles, you know, are significantly different and worse in ways. But that should never belittle the struggles that you've had, because they are struggles nonetheless.
Yeah, 100%.
So I just wanted to kind of frame that before, you know, if I talk about anything else that's been hard for me. Yes, because I definitely see myself as being very privileged in my in that, and I'm not saying I'm rich, because I'm not rich. I mean in terms of my the richness of love and support and friendships and family that I have, that kind of richness, which I know that, you know, people don't have.
Yeah, on that, I was watching this thing the other day that just like brought it back to my mind. Like this guy, his name's Bobby Lee. He's like been on Joe Rogan podcasts and stuff like that. But he was talking about how trauma isn't a competition. Like he struggled a lot growing up because his parents had been through more hardship than he had, and they almost would compete with him every time he said how things made him feel. And I think that's a really important thing. Like within everyone's story, there's these gems or these things that people can connect with. And I think no matter what you're going through, you're going through something. It's all a learning for someone, you know. So yeah.
And hard is hard, and if something feels hard, it still feels hard, you know. It's not just because you're not feeling the same hardness or difficulty or adversity as someone else doesn't mean it's not hard. And I think it's important for people to know that, you know, your hard is still hard for you at this time, and it still means that you need the same things. You need support, you need love, you need kindness. And I think in terms of a personal hard thing that I've had to overcome personally is being okay with who I am, and it's a thing that a lot of people feel, and it's that sense of identity, and feeling that you belong in a space, and that you are enough by yourself, and you don't have to try and be like somebody else. Because I've definitely had my time of feeling that I wasn't good enough and that I had to be like other people. And some people were like, why did you feel like you had to be like other people? Because, you know, you look like you have it all.
You're amazing.
You are enough.
Yeah. And it's and I'm not saying I'm amazing in ways. Yes, I am amazing, and everyone should put their hand up and say they're amazing. But I've definitely had those feelings of, I want to be like her, or I want to be like them, and I want to I wish I did that first, and that, you know, and it's kind of an ugly feeling to have. And then, because I've, you know, only few years ago did I begin to acknowledge that feeling in myself, and I'm still learning how to do that, because it's still a very real feeling for me. And you know, we have those days where we look in the mirror and we're like, oh, is this what, okay, right, cool, that's what your hair's doing. Oh, okay, yep, okay, that's what, you're all right. You know, or that's, you feel like crap today, da da da. But I look back at my younger self, who would look at herself and think that she wasn't good enough, and think, girl, you know, look at what you have, you know, own it, and be grateful, be proud, and show it, because other people are watching you and you can help them.
Well, that's human nature, right? To compare ourselves to other people, or like to want to have what someone else has. I mean, I do it all the time, and have done so in the past. Is like, oh man, I want his life because he's got like a PlayStation, or he's got like a really nice car. Like it just seems like really cool, like a cool lifestyle. And then I don't know, I get a sense that you know, sometimes I lose myself in that, and trying to be like someone else, and it just doesn't fit, because obviously it's not being authentic with myself, because that's not who I am and how I should be, you know. So yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah, hard out. Yeah. No. Yeah, it's a big thing. And I think a lot of people struggle with it, like you say. Like it's a very normal feeling. But I think when that feeling becomes like takes over you and it's in everything that you're thinking about, like everything, like for me, it was stuff like, oh, would someone write like this? Would they write it like this? Or would they message like this? Or would they eat that? Or would that, like, it became quite a controlling feeling.
It's consuming your life.
It can consume you and it can make you look and feel ungrateful. And I think, you know, I look back and I think, oh, why are you so, why did you want something else, you know? And I think also when people compare you to other people, and I think, you know, I don't know about you, Christian, but you know, you've got 6 older siblings. And I can imagine, you know, that there may have been some comparisons in your household of, you know, who's this, you know, oh, such a buddy did like this, or you're such a buddy's brother, or you're such a buddy's, you know, like, and you're the baby. You were the only one that went to St. Peter's, but, you know, I can imagine, was it like that?
Oh, 100%. And it wasn't just within my direct family, like it was my extended family too, like cousins and stuff like that. Like I remember growing up, there was this real big emphasis on it was always a sporting achievement that got you on Papa's little stand at his house. And if you got up there, you were the like favorite grandchild kind of thing. And I remember the day my photo got taken down, it was like the biggest insult. And well, not insult, but just like heartbreaking feeling, you know? Because and I think that still sat with me until very recently, like being compared to my siblings quite a lot. And I didn't know why it affected me so much, like when a manager would compare me to someone, or when a teacher would compare my grade to someone else's. But it does affect people, and I am now someone who hates comparing other people because I know how it feels. But yeah, it was a strange feeling for me to realize like that's where it came from, and it doesn't actually matter, you know.
No.
It's a photo on a stand.
Wait, why did he take it down?
It just kind of went out of date.
Okay.
Not really out of date, but it was like I won some medal for athletics, like Australia versus New Zealand or some shit, and my cousin had made some rugby team in Australia or some shit, and so it got taken down.
Well, family of athletes.
Yeah, hard out.
Not really. No. Where are we now? No.
Well, I think
in town.
the important thing here is that we're all different people, right? No matter you know, our family members and comparison, but at the end of the day, we all bring something different, and that's what Christian and I talked about. We all have something to offer to the world. And yeah, I mean, I've been compared to my mum actually quite a lot, and being in her shadow as such. So yeah, I get it. It's
cold, bro. No, just kidding.
You know, hey, we're all different people. We all bring something different. We all have our own story, and I think that's what's really important at the end of the day, is that we all have something to offer. And that we shouldn't be in anyone else's shadow, even if they are our siblings. You know, shine bright.
I think that's important, realizing that within every single individual, there is something amazing that they can give the world. And if you give them the chance to express that, then you're doing them the ultimate favor. And if you can support that, you're even more of a legend, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just quite a powerful thing to be able to do and to look for in people, you know. Everyone has something.
Everyone has something. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any, I guess, final thoughts or words of inspiration that you want to
Words of
give
wisdom.
to
Words
give
of
to the
wisdom.
world?
I mean, well, someone else will have to second it as wisdom. I have a quote in my room that says,
Oosh.
"Be yourself because everyone else is already taken." And I
love that. I love that.
I did not come up with it, but I have mentioned this quote when people say, like, what's your favorite quote? That's the quote that I'll say. But admittedly, I have not always been true to that. And there's the conversation we just had about, comparing ourselves to others and not really being our authentic self. And I think that's a constant reminder to me that, I was given this life, this gift of life to do something with it. And there's been no one who's like me before me or after me. And so why would I try and be someone else when someone else is already doing that? Like, why would I try and be a second, like a photocopy of that? Because, it's not worth more. It's worth less, really. And so, you're the original. And so it is easier said than done, like a lot of the things I've talked about. But everyone else is already taken. So just do you. And it's a journey of finding out who you are. And like, that's the beauty of it, is that we're always changing and growing and evolving. But I believe we have our main duty is to be our best selves, and to do it with authenticity, compassion, connectedness, and kindness.
Love that plug. No.
Yes, they made me say it. No.
We paid her. No.
But yeah, kindness is big for me. My mum always says kindness breeds kindness, and so yeah, be that. And I know Nora said that in hers too, about being kind. She did. Oh, did you fall asleep in that part?
Yeah. No. Sorry, Mum, I love you. No.
Be you. Like, I could try and be Ethan, but I would suck at it, right? I could try and be Christian and suck at it. So why try? Y'all could try and be me, but you'd suck at it. Like, that's the reality of it,
Yeah, no, 100%. I really resonate with that quote, actually. Be yourself because everyone is taken. It just makes so much sense. Like, we shouldn't be someone else because we're ourselves, in a sense. So yeah, I really, really appreciate your time today. And for us, well, I mean, you and Christian know each other. There's a lot of history there, but for me to get to know you more has been a privilege, actually. I've learned a lot through this conversation, and this is what it's all about, is us having a conversation and being able to spread it to the world, so someone else might be able to pick up some gems here and there. And no doubt they will, because that is a very strong quote. I'm considering actually printing it off and putting it in my room too.
Do it.
Because I love it. I actually really do.
Yeah. I mean, how would God feel? He'd probably like, oh, so what I made of you was not good enough. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Okay then.
Hit the undo button. No.
Undo.
I just want to really fully support what Ethan said. Thank you so much. Like, even though, yes, I know you a bit more than he does, for me it's still enlightening. And I think to hear more about you, as well as, like, this is what it's like in life. We go through life hanging out with these people, getting to know them, but we don't know who they are below the surface. So I think for us this is powerful, and I hope for everyone else it's powerful too, because you've got an amazing story. No matter what you say, you think you haven't been through much, you definitely have gold, little gem nuggets to share out with the world. And thank you for being open 100%. And honest and genuine today.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for building a movement that allows people to, if not speak here, to listen and feel that they can be a part of this as well. And it's mean work, especially coming from two fine young men. it's massive, and it's you know, it's a stone in the pond, but the ripples, they go on, and you may not see them, but they're there. And so thank you to both of you for providing a platform for it and for having me. I feel so honored when you messaged me asking me to do it. I was like, oh my gosh.
Who else?
A lot of people. I mean, you've got a lot of family members, both of you could work through. Thanks, guys. It's been an honor to share my evening online.
Beautiful. Oh, well, I'll stop recording now, but we can keep chatting after if you'd like.